Okay. And 3, 2, 1. And we are live.
Welcome in to Brewcast for Amazing Brew on the SB Nation Podcast Network. I am Luke Yardy, joined by Steven Osentowski here with you on October 4th as we head into Tuesday, October 5th. And, we're obviously going to get into the Michigan-Wisconsin game here. We are obviously going to talk a little bit about Nebraska here this week. But as you probably know, if you follow the site here, it's going to be Steven and I just moving forward here for the foreseeable future. Anthony, obviously, if you've been following along, has taken another position with another company. It's been, it was a ton of fun to work with Anthony, man. We love him to death. And we wish him nothing but the best for Brewcast. And as we do, we're going to continue, obviously, to do these Monday night meetings. Thank you for being patient with us going 15 minutes later. Steven and I were obviously, Anthony ran everything on his end. So we just got some trial run stuff that we're going through. So appreciate you guys being with us. And if it's a little bit different here, then, it's for the time being. Just bear with us a little bit here. But we're having a lot of fun. Appreciate y'all being with us here tonight. Already got the comments fired up, all ready to go. Steven, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Doing okay. Figuring things out. You said we're obviously going to miss Anthony. All the best to him in the future. See some comments. Logan Evans saying Anthony will be missed, and definitely reiterate that for sure. So, but, it's good to be here. Trying out Google Meet today. Okay, so we don't have the StreamYard. We don't have the fancy setup. We're seeing how this works. We're probably going to bring something back for next week, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes, and I apologize that my face is bigger than Luke's face for this episode. I'll try to switch it up and make sure that Luke gets his beauty time here on the live stream. Podcast people won't get the benefit of that, but we'll do what we can do. But yeah, man, what a game! I mean, to go in there, what year was it the last time that Michigan won in Madison?
2001.
Oh my gosh, where were you in 2001, Luke?
Oh my goodness, man! I was 9 years old, so that put me in about fourth grade, I think.
Yeah, I think I was in third grade. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an awful long time ago, man. 2001. I don't even. I mean, I know I was a Michigan fan, but I don't remember much from around that time period.
Yeah. It was and it was a definitive victory too. I think a lot of people were ready to hold on to their butts and go down to the bitter end. I predicted a 23-20 overtime victory for Michigan, and I didn't feel good about it. And to me, this feels like something that it's like consistently every week we see just like pump the brakes. Wisconsin isn't, the juggernaut that they've been as of late. They have a bunch of offensive issues they still have to solve. Mertz has been terrible. And even me, I was like, Mertz is just going to go crazy. He's going to dust off those cobwebs. He's going to go back. Was it the first game last year that he went something crazy, like 23 for 23 or something ridiculous? I'm like, that's the guy we're going to see. It's going to be terrible. Blake Corum's going to forget how to run the ball. And it's just, I think most people kind of went through that thought process, and it didn't happen. So I was happy on a lot of different fronts. We'll get into a lot of them, I'm sure, but I don't think it could have gone that much better.
Yeah, speaking to your point about Mertz, it's funny because I remember, reading a whole lot about him kind of coming out into college as the best quarterback Wisconsin's ever signed. And I watched him in the Army All-American game, man. He was a stud. I think he might have won Offensive Player of the Game in that game. And I was like, man, they got himself a guy. And that's exactly – I went through your thought process there. I'm like, all right, he has looked really bad, but this is definitely going to be the week that he finds it. It's just what's happened to Michigan throughout the years, it feels like, And even when Mertz went down, I thought Matt Wolf was going to Cardale Jones us or something, It was like it just never – you never get that feeling of relief until they went up 31-10. Then we kind of knew it was over. But, I mean, at the end of the day, outside of, the last couple of minutes of the first half, that game was never really in doubt. Michigan, even on the first couple of drives where they didn't, get any points or anything like that, it felt like they were moving the ball a little bit easier than we expected them to. Did you get that feeling at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first game where I can definitively say we have enough of a sample size on McNamara, because he threw the ball an amount that to me makes sense, 28 times. There was actually one of the subscribers to the channel sent me an email, and we were going back and forth on predictions on number of throws, and it was between 25 and 30. That's what felt right, because say what you want about Wisconsin, I don't think they're a great team. I think they're a solid team that'll probably be bowl eligible. I think they'll get there. But they have a stout run defense, really stout run defense. Both Notre Dame and Penn State really, really struggled. I think Notre Dame had 3 yards in like 36 attempts, something close to that against the Badgers. So that's the level of run defense that Wisconsin brings with their elite linebackers. So, you know, despite it not being a 350-yard outing on the ground that Michigan's used to, right? 112 yards on 44 attempts. That's not great, right? That's less than 3 yards an average. So you're definitely looking to do better than that. But again, Notre Dame had 3 yards total. And of course, that's, you know, not adjusted with sacks. But even so, and I think even Penn State struggled to put, I think they had something like 40-something yards. So
Penn State had like I think 30-some yards total at one point in the third quarter of that first game.
Yeah, it's a slog, man. So you're not going to be able to run against that team, and you need the pass to just to survive, to put up any points. So to your point, as soon as Michigan put up 10 points, and even when they were up at the half 13-10, it felt like a game that was, it should have been like a 28-10 game, not a 13-10 game. So yeah, I mean, I loved the aggression on the first drive, especially. I think looking at the second half of Rutgers, as soon as it hit fourth down on Michigan's own 35 or wherever it was, when Michigan had Haskins kind of do like a goal line jump to pick up the first down. But to me, it was just like, this is a continuation of the Rutgers game, right? If we're just running into this, we can't get the offense to just get enough plays to just settle in, figure out the rhythm. Just that's the thing that the Rutgers game, the second half, it was just like, yeah, the offense wasn't good, but they just couldn't get anything going. It's just really tough when Rutgers was sustaining all those drives. I think it kind of helped that Michigan solidified the aggression early, was able to pick up some yards. And I think you could see that the offense was getting somewhere, even if it wasn't, the first couple of drives weren't even producing points. But compared to what Wisconsin was doing, you're like, okay, this is sustainable. Michigan's going to break through here a little bit, and their offense is able to get a couple drives, and then the special teams play all around just really created more favorable opportunities for the offense overall. And I think that was a huge difference maker in this one, especially. I do want to talk about, just get out of the way, I saw it in the comments. Someone said the squib kick, this is Young Pro, the squib kick before half is my only complaint. And I saw this a lot. Before I give my stance, do you think the squib kick was a mistake at like right before halftime there?
So, yeah, obviously, you know, when you look at results over process, then it'd be an obvious answer. But even as a process over results sort of a way that I look at it, you knew what this game was going to be. And it was, well, what we thought the game was going to be. You know, we'll get into it. I didn't expect Michigan to be up 38-10 at any point. But at that moment, you went down. You got the field goal before halftime. Now, granted, you probably don't expect Wisconsin to do what they did. But at the same time, with a 10-point lead, knowing Wisconsin is going to get the ball back to begin the second half, I'm a believer in that scenario, given what you expect Wisconsin's defense to be in the second half, that you minimize any mistakes. You maximize the margin of error in that situation. So for me, with 27 seconds left, that means kicking it deep, putting it in the end zone. Wisconsin at the 25, even if they don't start with a 9-yard run, like Wisconsin didn't even want to go down and score anyway. They ran on that first play, and Michigan's run defense was, you know, kind of lackadaisical, gave up 9, and Wisconsin's like, all right, we can get field goal range. Obviously, it turns into a touchdown, but even a 9-yard gain from their own 25 with the timeouts that they have left, they're not going to go for any sort of scoring, I don't think, with Mertz there. So I think at that moment, up 10, I think the right move would have been, even with knowing what I know now, even without knowing what I know now, I still think the right move would have been kicking it deep and taking the 10-point lead in the half.
Yeah, the only reason that I'm a big fan of that squib kick is because everything you said makes so much sense. And I feel like that falls within the tendency of how Michigan was playing, right? There was a fourth down opportunity, I think, later in the half that Michigan punted on around midfield or something, which was very conservative, but it's a play you understand with how Wisconsin's offense was going. Everything was leading to, there's like a minute left. Wisconsin isn't doing anything. They want to make sure Michigan doesn't get the ball back. Kick it deep, whatever. So because of how much sense that made, I was such a big fan of the squib kick because it's like, in what mind is Michigan going here? Like Wisconsin has nothing going offensively. So I get it that you put yourself at risk, but it was only, they were at what, like 35-yard line instead of the 25. It's like maybe 37-yard line. And with how shaky Mertz was looking, you don't expect them to pick up like 9 yards on first down, which they got, because you're right. If they don't pick up 9 yards, they're running out the half. That was really a see what we can get. And then if we're closer to midfield, try a couple shots and see where we're at. So you don't expect them to get that 9-yard gain. They haven't been running the ball effectively. It was one of their longer runs, probably third longest run of the game, I think. And then you don't expect Dax Hill to get beat in coverage. You also had two safeties high, and Brad Hawkins kind of lost his mind on that post route. I don't know what he was doing. You don't expect your like seventh year safety to make that sort of just like no play on the ball there. And Dax Hill.
I think that was a verse concept, right? The guy kind of getting right behind him.
Yeah, it was really odd watching the film. I still don't understand what happened there. So then, like those two things, Dax Hill getting beat, which he was actually in good coverage. He had a hand on the ball on that route. But having him and Brad Hawkins not be able to make a play on that ball is like pretty astonishing. And then having Dax Hill again beat in the end zone. You take the odds of those three plays happening in a row like that in that game, and it's like, you know what? You get one. You know, it's like, okay. It's like, all right, with how that game was going, the odds of that happening, and Michigan almost got that squib kick. So Michigan gets that squib kick, potentially go up, like what, it would have been 20-3 if they would have recovered, got a touchdown, at the very least, 16-3 with how
I'm not going to give them that much credit since they couldn't score when they got it at the 5.
That's fair.
That first half.
That's fair. But say a field goal, 16-3, and that game looks incredibly different. So I get it. The safe play could have been just kick it out of the end zone, 13-3. You're feeling really good about yourselves. And it gave them some life, right? It gave Wisconsin some life. So I get it. It was a team that was struggling.
It was probably Mertz's two best throws of the year, to be quite honest.
Without a doubt. But I love the go for the throat attitude. That's the thing where that first drive, fourth down call, and that squib kick, it's just like they're just really trying to kill this team, like really demoralize them going into halftime. And I love it. I love that road atmosphere. And I think it kind of feeds into what we saw with the jump around. And I mean, even right after halftime, that's when Dax Hill just absolutely annihilated Mertz on that blitz. And it just, any air of momentum that Wisconsin had in that second half just got completely deflated. So I love it. I think aside from all of the play from both the offense and defense that we can point out, I think just the attitude of the coaching staff and the ability to, from start to finish, really just demoralize Wisconsin, I think, is something that's really encouraging.
I love that the talent is starting to seep through, particularly on the defensive side of the football. Like Aiden Hutchinson, he was unblockable. I mean, I think about the time in the first half he got a holding call called in. You went and watched the replay, and there's two Wisconsin offensive linemen grabbing him around the waist, trying to hold him back. But we knew what he was. To see Dax starting to play like we know he can, to see David Ojabo just become an absolute star has been fantastic. And then even Chris Hinton in there, Mozzie Smith, a huge underrated play on that first drive, knocking the ball away on a tight end screen. That would have been a huge play. I mean, talent really is starting to see on this Michigan defense.
Yeah. And I think a big part is we haven't heard a whole lot about a guy like Mozzie Smith. I'm glad you brought him up. Chris Hinton, I feel like his name hasn't been brought up a whole lot. And when you don't hear the defensive line, the interior defensive line brought up a whole lot, it usually means they're doing their job, right? Like it's usually like you only hear about the defensive line if if Michigan's just getting gashed up front. And this was, not a Wisconsin offensive line that I think has a guy like Frank Ragnow or, any of that level guys, but it's still good. It's still a solid offensive line overall. They're missing some talent at running back this year, which is the first time I think in Wisconsin history that I'll ever say that. But I think it's very encouraging just to have continued week over week success and multiple bodies, because I thought Jordan Whitley was going to be a guy we really, really needed this year. You have a guy like Mike Morris, again, someone I don't think is getting enough attention. Mozzie Smith, you mentioned him, Chris Hinton, and then your mop-up duty with a guy like Jeter, a guy like Welshoff. Those are guys, and Upshaw as well. These are names that aren't necessarily brought up, but they're doing a lot of the work that is enabling a young guy like Junior Colson to really thrive. Nikai Hill-Green's having a pretty solid season. He wouldn't be in the position he is now without that. And Josh Ross had a really rough 2020. I think he's benefiting from it as well, getting a lot cleaner looks, a lot cleaner paths into the backfield. So that's just a really encouraging sign. They're playing with a lot more confidence, and they're making it really, really hard on opposing offenses to put together sustained drives, which I really like, because in the past it just felt like there was always like a back-breaking play, and I think Michigan is tied with Alabama right now for the least number of plays over 20 yards, which is insane. Wow. They're top 5 in the country in that regard, and that's pretty phenomenal. That's how you win games, because even against, I'll bring up Rutgers again, because that felt really bad defensively. Like, it didn't feel good, but you still held them to 13 points. And at the end of the day, whether it's a performance against Wisconsin where you held them, what was it, 250 total yards, 210 total yards, whether it's that or you're giving up more yardage to Rutgers, you're holding them to 17, 13 points. You're going to win most games if you're doing that in college football today. So scoring defense is what matters, and that's where Michigan is continuing to produce week over week. So it's feeling less and less like an aberration when that's continued success there.
Shout out our guy Venom22 in the chat here. He's a subscriber to the Amazing Brew YouTube page. Make sure you go and do that as well. And I want to shift gears a little bit, because there's a lot of talk about the quarterback, coming into this game, obviously. And, man, I think, for me, Cade McNamara answered a whole lot of questions on Saturday, to be honest with you. Now, people are going to point to some missed throws, and I think that pretty much every quarterback in America is going to have a few missed throws, man, because he had some great throws that, obviously the couple on the drive, the one to Eric All that set up the dime to Cornelius Johnson on that second touchdown pass. The flea flicker, I understand CJ was wide open, but he led it perfectly. He never had to break stride, didn't give the safety a chance to catch up to that ball. That was a beautiful throw. And I think what he did best, man, was he managed the game, didn't turn it over, but he avoided a lot of sacks, too. He was able to – sacks are drive killers at the end of the day, and he's been able to kind of avoid those all year, and to see him be asked to pass more, be able to do that, in more drop-back situations and still be able to move the team down the field, man. I was very impressed with Cade McNamara on Saturday.
Yeah, he is the epitome of why Michigan has, I feel like, such a high floor with him at the quarterback position, because like you said, sacks put you behind the chains and you're just put in really tough situations as an offense. Turnovers, it lets a team like Wisconsin back into this game. He just doesn't put the game at risk. And it really feels closer to like an NFL style team with him at quarterback. You just feel really safe with the decisions he's going to make. Of course, there are frustrations. There are a couple. There was the Dalen Baldwin crossing route that it's debatable. I think Baldwin should have stopped in the zone on his crossing route there, but that throw was behind him. There was a slant that was behind Cornelius Johnson. Even the Roman Wilson catch down the sideline on 3rd and long that set up a touchdown later on that drive, that was a little bit behind him. It was a stop and go for Roman Wilson down the sideline that, if it was appropriately led, would have been a wide open touchdown in the end zone. So even with those inaccuracies, listen, it's a collegiate quarterback. It's not going to be perfect. But the thing I like the most is I hated hearing the question. I try not to use the word hate because I feel like it's a strong word, but I really strongly disliked the questions about, do they really trust Cade McNamara? Because when I saw them do the speed out to Roman Wilson on 4th and 2, that showed me that they learned, because on a couple other 3rd and short, 4th and shorts, they tried just a split zone up the middle, and it got caught. The defensive ends and linebackers for Wisconsin would cut inside either Ryan Hayes or one of the tight ends, and usually for no gain. And Michigan, found a solution and trusted Cade McNamara's arm on that quick out to Roman Wilson. That's a tough throw to make, too. It has to be quick, has to be really on time on single coverage. There's a window there, but it's not a really big window, and it has to be perfectly timed. And he did that expertly. It was exactly where the ball had to be, really well timed. And it's a throw that Jared Goff failed.
And those plays cut down the field to a third. Like, it has to be absolutely perfect, and they trusted him enough to do that, to your point.
Yeah, and it's the same. You watch the 4th and 1 play the Lions had in the red zone against the Bears this weekend, and it was the same exact throw, a quick out on a 4th down, and Jared Goff didn't make that throw. Cade McNamara made the throw. I'm not saying he's a pro, but I'm just saying it's a tough throw. It's a tough throw. And I love that he made it, and I love that it kind of quells this discussion point of, do they trust him? Yeah, they do. They threw the ball 28 times. He had near 200 yards, got 2 touchdowns on 2 really beautiful passes, and he got the job done. It was an efficient offensive outing against a pretty damn good Wisconsin defense. So I do like that they got J.J. McCarthy involved. They had him on the 4th down QB sneak. And the thing I really like about that QB sneak, Cade McNamara could have done that, right? It's just take the snap, burrow your face behind Andrew Stuber, get pushed from behind from Haskins and Sainristil, you'll get in the end zone. But I like that they put J.J. McCarthy in that scenario. It's a hostile crowd, 4th down, big play, right? It was still when the game was still in question. Big play. You have to be able to calm your nerves, take the snap, just execute appropriately, and it's a big confidence booster. Staff trusts you to put you in that position. Can you execute well? Can you just go out there and be in that environment? Just feel that environment, harness that energy, and it puts him in that situation so that down the line, he'll be more accustomed to what that feels like, just the adrenaline, and have that. Mm-hmm. So it puts him in a really good situation in a low risk scenario, right? I think you can trust your backup quarterback to be able to take a snap and do a QB sneak, but it does more for him mentally than anything else. So I think I want to get your take on J.J. McCarthy's play overall and kind of like what you think Michigan should do. But I think just getting him in a few scenarios, especially that QB sneak, is really wise just moving forward.
Oh, yeah, I love to see him get some reps out there. And I think you actually had a really good tweet about it in the sense that, there's a couple of things that he's shown he can run that read option, whereas Cade McNamara just – I don't know if they're – back to your point, not kind of pun not intended here, but, the fact that they probably don't trust Cade to pull and read on some read plays like this. They probably don't trust his athleticism, enough. He pulled once against Washington. I think that's the only time he's pulled here this year on anything on some of those split zones you were talking about. But J.J. McCarthy had one where I thought they kind of screwed him out of a first down, but it was about a 9-yard run over to the sideline, showed off a little speed, and then your tweet mentions it, man. The guy can throw a beautiful deep ball, like he did to Dalen Baldwin, and that is – you can't, when he comes in, you might think it's for sure going to be a run. We've seen packages all over college football that the guy comes in, they're going to run it. Not necessarily for J.J. McCarthy. He can pull it down. He can beat you over the top, man. So I love that they've got two things, and they're not rotating them equally because obviously, the old saying, you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. I get it. But this is, if there are special packages that aren't going to disrupt the flow of the game, kind of like McCaffrey did a few years back with Shea Patterson, that kind of just disrupted the offensive flow. I don't think that's the case when JJ comes in, which I think they learned from that situation and have been able to incorporate this one a little bit better.
Yeah, I like that he's kind of putting together rapport with Dalen Baldwin. Both deep shots were to him. I'm glad that he's kind of getting involved there. And yeah, it makes me really happy that it's not just a run package. You have to, like, teams will have to start thinking about, like, okay, we might have to drop two safeties deep here because he might come in and throw a deep shot, right? And that deep ball is pretty lethal. You look at that and it's like, okay, he has the capability to drop that in the breadbasket. You can't throw a ball any better than that. And teams are going to, like, start thinking twice about bringing pressure in those third and long scenarios. So that's only going to make things easier for him when they ask him to actually read a little bit more. So it's something where I can understand people saying, like, yeah, he has a higher ceiling, but where's his floor at? And you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows at this point. My theory is he's just not there in practice. He's probably still getting up to speed on being as safe of an option as Cade McNamara. And again, this is a team that, and a staff, I think, that really prioritizes taking care of the ball, managing the game. And that's just something that, as a true freshman, it just takes time to get there. So regardless of how bright those shining moments are, it's how bad can it turn really quick, and you just don't want to delve into that. So I think it's smart to take advantage of his skills, where if he's able to drop in a deep ball in one-on-one coverage, throwing a go route to Dalen Baldwin, the downside of that, it rarely gets picked off. And it's something that really gives McCarthy a lot of confidence. I think it really does. And then running the ball, yeah, it's something I bet they're just trying to protect McNamara a bit more on. I think they understand that there's a lot of value in having two competent quarterbacks on the roster. And as they get McCarthy up to speed, I bet they'll continue to kind of incorporate him, get him a little bit more comfortable as time goes on throughout the season. There's going to be times McNamara needs to run the ball. There just will be, but I just don't think they believe that it's necessary still, which infuriates me, because why are you running these split zone plays where the read is there and you're not keeping it? It doesn't make sense. But I truly think they just believe in the value of having your quarterback healthy throughout the season, rather than picking up a extra 5 yards on one of these plays. I think they're valuing that long-term safety more than anything else, which I disagree with, but I can understand that. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you're calling for JJ to start this week, probably not going to happen. Probably not going to see it in the near future. But who knows? I mean, they have to be giving him game time, non-garbage time reps for some reason. So I'm not shutting the door on that possibility moving forward, down the line by any means. But this is going to be another tough test here this week, man. This is not the game that we probably thought it was going to be when we saw Nebraska lose to Illinois. We've seen Nebraska start to play some good football. They played Oklahoma tough. Should have beat Michigan State at the end of the day. And last week they took it out on Northwestern, man. 56-7. They had 427 yards rushing. I understand what Northwestern is, but I mean, this is all of a sudden a somewhere between competent and good Nebraska Cornhuskers team.
Yeah, it's one I'm honestly really excited for the defense. The Rutgers game, I think, showed a lack of probably a lack of preparation for the option. And Nebraska takes that to a different level, because the difference, and I tweeted about it, Rutgers, when they hit the quarterback on the option play, on the read option, the quarterback would probably pick up a ceiling of 8 to 9 yards, and it felt really frustrating. But Martinez keeping on the option is a touchdown. He can make a house call on that pretty easily, and that's something that Michigan just can't live with. So the thing that was frustrating to me on the option plays, it seemed like Michigan had the bodies, just not the dedicated players per offensive threat. So if they had a inverted veer and the running back was running towards the boundary, there were 3 guys there kind of reading what the outcome was going to be, whether it's a quarterback keep or give to that running back heading towards the sideline. But they were reacting too late, to the point where even if he gave it to the running back, they were too slow in reacting. And that's where I do think in terms of what Don Brown's defense was good at is he had numbers and he attacked those option plays with quite a bit of aggression to where you're not reading anything that the offense is doing. You're attacking those players and you're assigned those players. So it's something where I think you're going to have to be a little bit more assertive in that regard than what Michigan showed against Rutgers, because you can't live against this offense while waiting to read what they do, because they run a lot of triple option and their athletes are just too good on offense to live that way. And they have some deep threats, man. I really like their FCS transfer from Montana, Samori Toure, I believe, number 3. I only know him because I drafted him in this little Big Ten fantasy league I'm in, and he's picking up big points for me. So he's a true deep threat, and I think he's a guy that Michigan will get tested on for their corners, because that's the one position I think we've seen a lot of positive returns on the defensive line. I've seen a lot from the linebackers I'm enthused about. Obviously, Dax Hill is there. Corners, seems like Vincent Gray's answered the call a little bit. G-Man Green's been insanely quiet. I think he's relatively untested. A couple tough balls I think he got his hand on that still resulted in completion. So jury's still out is my point there, because I haven't seen a lot from DJ Turner that makes me too excited there. So it's a position I think is going to get tested for sure this week. And I think the offense will still be able to score. I think the running game especially has a really good opportunity. But I mean, you're right. Nebraska is where they're at right now, 3-3. They are kind of similar to Wisconsin to me, where it would not surprise me if they rattled off 3 or 4 straight towards the end of the season after a tough start. And it's besides Iowa, the Big Ten West is just an onslaught, man. And it wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska turned into that team that kind of snuck up on the Big Ten West and ended up second in that division.
Yeah, and the offense, obviously, that's going to present the challenge. We've seen them play, very well. Adrian Martinez is a capable quarterback, but I'm also looking at this team, and since they gave up 30 to Illinois in week 1, they haven't given up more than 23 in a single game, and that includes Michigan State, Oklahoma, some pretty good offenses that have been able to put up points here this year. So this is another one of those ones where they answered the call in Madison. The offense looked pretty good, but they're going to have to string together a couple of good road performances here.
Yeah, this is going to be something where, and comments point out a really good fact here, Nebraska is starting a true freshman at offensive line. Their left tackle. So that's something where it's just going to be like, good luck. Because with what Ojabo put on film, we know Hutchinson is just a menace that teams are going to have to continue to prep for. But with Ojabo emerging now, they're not going to want to test that. So that's why they're going to try to option the edges as much as they can. Read off of Hutchinson, read off of Ojabo, put those guys in conflict so that you don't have to block them. When it comes to the pass game, I don't expect them to hold the ball more than a 3-step drop and throw. So really quick slants, maybe some fades here to test the corners. I think it's going to kind of be going back to in the pass game, try to emulate 2020 Michigan State, where they just throw up things really quick. I mean, if you remember that game, they were throwing the ball so quick, even when pressure was getting there or was going to be there, the ball was already out of Rocky Lombardi's hands. And that's what Nebraska is going to have to do. Honestly, they'd be stupid to do otherwise. So it's going to be a game where I don't think they're going to test the interior at all. And they're just going to try to throw quick passes and option all of the edge defenders that Michigan throws at them. And I think if they're smart, they'll run hurry up as well, because having a fresh Aiden Hutchinson, having a fresh Ojabo on the edge, Michigan has depth at that position with Jalen Harrell coming off. You got a lot of bodies that you can throw at that sort of edge rush scenario. So if Nebraska can really get going on that option game and get the hurry up offense to keep Michigan's defense tired, that's the success that Nebraska can find, and that's where Michigan has to spend honestly all of their time in prep, just defending that. Get them in long distance scenarios, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and you're going to win that game. So watching first and second down, first down especially, if you can hold them to 2 yards or less on first down, I think that defense for Michigan will be really set up well. Otherwise, again, I think it gets really dicey, and I don't know, man. It's the one thing where I think it's not an offense that is going to emulate Ohio State, right? Because this first year, Ohio State doesn't really have a running quarterback. But in terms of the tempo, in terms of like the competence of offense, you look at the rest of the teams on the schedule, it's hard to find one as dynamic as Ohio State. I think Nebraska comes pretty close to that, though.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, I'm curious to how Michigan is going to attack this Nebraska defense, because we've been looking and comparing kind of at how Michigan State plays it, and for the most part, those first couple of weeks, the way Kenneth Walker and Blake Corum were running, they were both having incredible success, but Michigan State just 2.4 yards per carry against this Nebraska defense. So you wonder, is Michigan going to have to play similar like they did this past weekend in Madison to go in there and have some success, or do you think they're going to be able to get some push along that offensive line?
Yeah, it's a tough thing because I'm not really sold on Michigan State's offensive line right now. I think Kenneth Walker early on this season, he had one of the he had an astronomical missed tackle stat line. And that's obviously a good thing. You want your running back to be able to do that. That's also usually a sign that they're creating way more yards than they should. So I honestly need to watch more of Nebraska's defense. I've been spending a lot of time watching their offense because I think it's their clear strength. But I do think the past 2 defensive lines Michigan's gone against, with Rutgers with their slanting defensive line, with Wisconsin's just stout linebackers and defensive line overall, I think it's going to be a run attack that gets closer back on track. Not, 7 yards per carry, but I think it's going to create a lot more favorable scenarios for the pass game. Whereas I think Michigan just had to lean more on the pass game against Wisconsin, just as a result of the strength of Wisconsin. So yeah, we'll see, man. I think it's nice to have this past game because now we're confident. Yeah, McNamara is a little bit more confident on the road in a hostile environment. I don't like that it's a night game. Nebraska's going to be fired up. But I think it's going to be a game that is closer to 4.5 yards per carry for Michigan. I still think the offensive line is a plus unit, even though last couple games rough sledding. But I don't think Nebraska has the athletes to really stalemate the offensive line for Michigan. I think it's going to be one where Michigan's able to get enough push there to create more second and mid and third and short scenarios.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think or at least myself and some other people, maybe even Vegas, with Michigan opening as just a 1-point favorite, maybe just putting a little too much stock into Nebraska sometimes in their performance against Northwestern. Really, the Oklahoma performance, right? In the sense that Oklahoma has really kind of struggled a bit this year, uncharacteristically, specifically on offense. This is a game Michigan should be able to go in and push Nebraska around at the end of the day.
It's going to be a tough one, though, because it's not a game where against Wisconsin you put up 20 points and you feel like you're going to win that game.
Right, yeah.
But so it's one that I think is going to be – it's going to take longer for Michigan to really separate themselves in this game, where the game kind of fell over against Wisconsin after Mertz went out, where it's just okay, they're just not going to be able to do anything here. Where with Nebraska, I feel like as long as they have Martinez in the game, they can put up points pretty quickly, and I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, honestly. I think this is one where I think fans are probably going to be worried, the defense has reverted back to whatever, where I think it's honestly more of Nebraska's offense being good and Michigan kind of the first time under this defense running into this high-powered of an attack overall. So I was surprised by the line. I expected it to be closer to probably five 5. I think I tweeted out 3, but I think 5 probably felt closer to what I would have expected it to be. But I mean, I think there's still like a historical thing going here where, like, when's the last time Michigan has won in multiple hostile road environments? It's just not a thing that Michigan is known for. And, luckily Michigan bucked that trend last week. But yeah, I mean, I think this has the makings of like a 42-31 sort of victory for Michigan. But that's hard to say, man, because I don't know if a team can put up 31 against Michigan with how they've played. That's the thing.
And the thing is, too, like, I mean, yeah, Nebraska scored last week, but, against Michigan State, 16 against Nebraska, 22 against Illinois. Like, they're capable of being high power, but they haven't really been able to hit their gear with a lot of consistency this year.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and of course, the cynic in us as jaded Michigan fans would be like, of course, this is going to be the week they find that gear, right? But again, at the end of the day, they've been more disciplined this year, and it's been great to see. And I think that's the thing that's kind of going to, set them apart is they're playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing discipline. And at the end of the day, if you play discipline, I think they got the athletes to kind of overpower, this Nebraska team outside of kind of Adrian Martinez and a couple of those receivers every once in a while that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think they're going to break plays. I think Nebraska will break a few plays. But again, I like Michigan's chances on offense better than I did against Wisconsin, and Michigan still put up 38. So, you know what? it's hard for, like, I would have never predicted 38 points against Wisconsin. Right. So it's always tough to say these sorts of things. Our call ends in 10 minutes.
Well, then I guess we just got alerted that that's our cue here. Is we will.
We got to do our final question here. The question in the title here. Cue us up, Luke.
What is the ceiling for Michigan football after the Wisconsin win, Stephen Osentowski?
Oh, I defer to the second half of this 10 minutes. Luke, go ahead.
All right. Actually, I think the ceiling for me was actually, it wasn't necessarily changed. It was just kind of confirmed for me. And that is when I look around the college football landscape, at least as it pertains to the rest of Michigan's schedule, is they can beat anyone left on their schedule. They can go into Penn State and win. I'm not saying that they absolutely will. I'm saying they have the capability, whereas, last year we knew they couldn't. In 2019, I mean, they put up a far better performance against Penn State than I expected them to. I didn't think they could go into Penn State and win that year. I think that they can this year. I think they can beat Ohio State this year. Now, obviously, I know it sounds like blasphemy. They can do it. Will they do it? That's another thing. The ceiling for this team is they win the remainder of their games. I don't think they can be on the same field with Georgia and Alabama, but I think the ceiling of this football team is that they can win the Big Ten. But again, like they did on the road as an underdog, they have to do things that they've proven through the first 6 years under Jim Harbaugh that they can do something that they simply have not been able to do.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm going to say the ceiling is I'm between 1 or 2 losses. So,
yeah. I mean, that's the most likely scenario, right?
Yeah. I think Michigan's ceiling is a 1-loss team. And that's including like getting to the Big Ten championship, which is a crazy thing to say at this point.
Right.
I'm not going to say undefeated because I honestly think between at Nebraska, an undefeated MSU right now, a Penn State, an Ohio State, and an Iowa. Honestly, one loss out of that murder's row, add in a Maryland, add in an Indiana, Northwestern.
And then if you are able to potentially get to Indianapolis, you'd probably look at an Iowa team.
That's what I mean.
Lights out.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, there, you're naming 4 top 10 teams.
But I guess the question is in a vacuum, is there a team on Michigan's schedule that they can't beat?
I If Michigan plays as well as they can, I think they can go toe to toe. I think they can. But just taking into account, I think a game against Michigan playing their best against Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan State, I think all of those have potential to be really, really close games. And one of those, even when we're talking about ceilings, one of those just won't go your way. I think
totally fair.
I think most likely is a 3-loss season, and even then, a 9-3 season is incredibly solid with this schedule. It's incredible, and I think 2 losses is honestly where I would peg this team. I had this team probably looking at 4 losses as an optimistic take going into this season. So they're already surpassing what I would expect. But
I still think so. My original prediction was lose at Wisconsin, lose at Penn State, lose to Ohio State. I still think even with the Wisconsin win, they probably do lose at Penn State and they probably do lose to Ohio State. But if the question is the ceiling, I think they're talented enough across the board to, in a vacuum, win any game against any team they play in the regular season.
Yeah, I think my viewpoint is honestly going to change after this week, because with how dynamic Nebraska's offense is, I think if Michigan can hold them to under 20 points or so, and the offense continues to build upon what they've shown the past couple weeks, or at least past week and season, I'm just not counting the second half of Rutgers, right? But if they continue to build on the offense and their defense is able to appropriately keep Nebraska in check, that's going to go a long way with me, a lot further than Wisconsin. I thought Michigan was a really good matchup for Wisconsin overall. I think they had the passing game that they just hadn't needed to show at this point. And I think with Wisconsin's offense struggling, Michigan was just a really good match. Defense is something that now is the only remaining question, especially in the areas that Nebraska is going to test. If they can hold them to a reasonable yardage and point total, I'm going to be close to all in and way closer to the one loss scenario than my current 2-loss scenario. There's a lot to play for in each one of these games, and it's honestly like the strongest Big Ten East that I think I can possibly remember. It's pretty wild when you look at the West compared to the East this year. And I had a tweet that did very well because I was just dogging on the Big Ten West, and that's fun to do. But yeah, I'm excited, man. It's nice to see the team playing with such confidence. I loved hearing last night that J.J. McCarthy, Donovan Edwards, Andrel Anthony were practicing after getting off the flight like some maniacs. I saw a tweet about Aiden Hutchinson saying that people are hitting the weight room after they got off the flight or something. It's just a team that realizes that they've got something and they just need to work a little bit harder to ensure they maximize that potential.
All righty. Well, as we're running out of time here, Steven, I'll let everyone know where they can find you on social media, what you got coming up this week on the YouTube channel and whatnot.
Yeah, at Steven Toski on Twitter, on YouTube. Like this video, and I'll post some analysis tomorrow. So we'll see. I got 15 or 16 plays of offense I'm going to be focusing on, getting to those right after we wrap up here. So I'll post those on my Twitter, play-by-play. I'll be going through 10 of those on Twitter, and then additional 6 plays on the full video that you can find on the Maize n Brew website. And if you're a member of the channel, you'll get early access to those plays on the full video. So head over to the channel, press the join button, and there's a tier there that gives you early access to those videos. So expect at least one. I'm hoping to do defense. That'll come later this week as well. But as always, throw a like and subscription to the channel. And if you really like it, press that join button.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Giardi, LukeGiardi. And as Steven mentioned, subscribe, rate, leave a review, especially subscribe to the YouTube channel so you know when we're going here on Monday nights and the other live content that Steven is doing. Appreciate everyone who's a paid subscriber. You get a lot of cool stuff with what Steven does, obviously. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can join us live. We had about 150 people watching live, which is awesome, man. Appreciate you all so much for coming in, chatting. Even the Sparty fans that got in here on the action infiltrated the comments a little bit, man. We appreciate you guys watching as well. So that's going to do it for us here on Brewcast. For Stephen Osentowski, I'm Luke Yardy, and we'll see you next week.